1, 2, 3.
Hello and welcome. I'm Stephen Goldberg, and I'm pleased to have with me today Fred Rosenzveig, who's the president of Mindrange, the Institute for Thinking Development. Thank you for being here, Fred.
It's a pleasure.
Fred is also an instructor at the John Molson School of Business, part of Concordia University. What do you teach at the John Molson School of Business?
I teach in the area of creative thinking and innovation as it relates to strategy, product development, process improvement, a whole range of things.
Tell me, what is lateral thinking?
Well, lateral thinking actually made its appearance as a word in the Oxford English Dictionary in the 1980s. And it was defined there as coming up with unusual solutions or ideas through a process which would normally be ignored by the logical mind, and coming at things differently from a logical perspective through using various techniques. And it leads to those ideas which are obvious only after they've been thought of.
Is there a difference between lateral and creative thinking, or?
It's basically one type of creative thinking, or another way of describing a major kind of creative thinking process, which is to get away from whatever your usual thought pattern is and develop a brand new one.
What are the steps to becoming a creative thinking company?
When you want to start, you have to look at three basic things that makes a company creative. One of the things that you need is expertise in the area you're working in. So if you're working for a Google or an Apple or a Microsoft, you have a lot of people who are expert in computer engineering and programming and all of that kind of stuff. Whatever you bring to the table is that expertise. So obviously the more expertise you have in an area, the more depth you can go with your creativity, you'll go further with it. The second thing you need is an attitude and a motivation. If the attitude isn't there of encouraging creativity, removing bureaucracy that gets in the way, where you need multiple sign-offs and there's multiple layers, getting permission to work on things that seem promising. I mean, that's all in the foreground where you need, to create ideas. The last thing, of course, is creative thinking skills. So if there aren't creative thinking skills, which are usually, see, the problem with expertise is it trains creative thinking out of you. By the time you're a PhD in biochemistry, or
Done so much research
or analysis, or computer, or engineering, or something, you're hired for that skill. But believe me, the creative thinking is trained out of you. You're going to build something that's going to work and isn't going to fall down and it's going to follow the field and so forth. So that has to be brought back in.
So what are those skills that you teach, or those approaches to the creative thinking skill?
What I've done is I focus on a tool set, a conceptual tool set. I call it software for the mind. That is very simple, very easy to use, that helps people enlarge what they take in, so they're not in dreaded TV disease of tunnel vision, and they think more broadly, and also change the way they think, which is the creative side of things. So there's one is taking more in and thinking more broadly and looking beyond your field, your company, or whatever areas you're in, and then there's thinking differently, and there's techniques and training that will help people do that. And in fact, it starts with all creativity. If you think of it as a kind of a funnel, you need the widest possible inputs to get the best outputs. And so thinking more broadly, thinking creatively, we train people, they develop up to 10 times as many, the ability to generate as many ideas as possible. And then there's a process of winnowing and harvesting those ideas. That's
which I filmed you doing that with a group a few weeks ago.
I believe in targeted, focused brainstorming, which brings the rigor and of the logical brain together with. So you're brainstorming a structured brainstorming, very, very structured, and facilitated brainstorming until it's you learn how to self-facilitate it is very, very useful. And brainstorming from a whole variety of angles, so that you're going from one brainstorm logically to another type, another perspective on the situation, to another perspective, to another. So you get almost a three-dimensional view of a situation rather than just a single view with a whole bunch of ideas. I have something I call the ABCDE process. And I say that because it's fairly easy to remember the first 5 letters of the alphabet, and they're sequential. So you start with the aim, you then go broad, and that's where the creative thinking is, and we're taking in, getting all the data and information and perspectives you can, and then doing creative thinking, coming up with all the ideas. And then you go to the C stage, which is to contract and choose and basically boil things down to a plan, an idea, an initial concept, something you want to take further. Then you go to the D stage, which is to do that or develop that further. And the E stage is to evaluate how what you've developed matches your aim at the A stage. And if it doesn't match that well, like the Montreal Olympic Stadium, where they aim to have a world-beating classic monument for the ages, but they found out that the roof didn't pass the first winter, despite $1 billion. And so they had to go back to the B stage again and say, what factors did we leave out? Oh, winter. And rethink that and take that through the process.
Well, that's what's nice. You could always go back if your result isn't your aim. You could go back and instead of abandoning it.
It's actually a continuously cycling process. So you can take any element and go broader with it. And then contract and boil that down, and then decide to develop that idea further, or just do it if it is something that would work.
So let's talk a bit about the benefits of becoming a more creative organization, applying some of the techniques of creative thinking.
There's huge ROI for creativity, and I measure that with organizations I work with in 3 ways. One way is that you are able to do things better, more quickly, more profitably, in better ways, things you've always done. So that's doing things better. But the second thing is doing things completely differently, something totally new. That can be called disruptive creativity, where you develop a whole new product. Too. That is,
and that might hold back some companies.
Yes, it might hold back. It's a big risk, but if you're geared to do that, there's a process to do that and to win at it. I worked with one major confectionery company, Mars, and I worked with the senior plant managers of a totally modern, completely upgraded, brand new plants, and they were meeting using creative thinking, using these Mindrange tools for creative thinking. About 15 minutes every morning before the plant opened to get together and deliberately using tools. And they found all kinds of ways to redo things, to reuse scrap, to do all kinds of things in every single process that saved them $2 million in the first quarter they just started those meetings. So that really paid off for them. Now, in terms of brand new ideas, I worked with one of the major lottery companies in Canada, which is Atlantic Lottery Company, the 4 maritime provinces. And they came up with, they had some problems. They were afraid one of their biggest provinces would defect with 60% of their revenue and go off on its own. And they looked at new ideas. And one of the new things they developed using these Mindrange tools, and a team from IBM as well to do the tech part, is the first absolutely online state or provincial lottery where you could buy every single product, including the Lotto 649, the big jackpot products, right online, with a lot of social controls. So the problem gamblers and people who gambled too much and young people couldn't do it. And the dealers or the concessions for this would still get a cut and so forth. And it's called PlaySphere. You have to be an Atlantic Province resident, Maritime Province resident to get onto it. And then they could sell that idea to any other province or state because they don't compete geographically. So instead of just developing a new lottery game for their own market, they've got something that they can sell not just to people in their provincial areas, but they could sell it around the world.
Anything else you want to add about creative thinking that would be of value to our listeners?
Well, I think that it's important that once you allow creativity in an organization, first of all, to use an overused but important word, empowering to people. They like working in those kind of organizations, and you're going to attract, like Google does, like Apple does, like some of these exciting tech startups do, very engaged, motivated people, particularly younger people, who don't want to do things the old way and don't have a 60-year career path through the organization. And that's really, really important. Also, creativity is fun and can be very humorous and lighthearted. And when we do programs for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, people come out of them more energized rather than drained. That's terrific.
As well,
Einstein said something very interesting about creativity. He said, creativity is catching or infectious. Pass it on. So indeed, it's a good bug to catch.
Good. Well, that's a great way to end. Thank you very much, Fred. If you like this video, please comment. Tell us what you're doing in your organization to fuel creativity. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
I hope you find these tips useful. Here's some videos that are related that you can watch right now. Subscribe to our channel to get news of new videos as they come out. Thanks for listening, and talk again soon.